We have to get to the bottom of this. A cargo ship hasn't taken out a bridge in decades. And a ship, as far as we can tell, has never sustained a power failure before a bridge knockdown. We need answers. Someone has to pay.
Just days ago, a massive cargo ship completely destroyed the Baltimore Bridge in a series of very suspicious events. Moments before colliding with the bridge, power suddenly cut off, not once, but twice. Safeguards were in place to prevent this from happening, but randomly, they all failed.
The lights of the ship actually flash off, they go off, and then a few seconds later they come back on. That would indicate an electrical power failure.
Sparking debates about whether or not this could have been a cyber attack. This bold step challenges the FBI's statements.
I want to be clear that there is no specific or credible information to suggest that there are ties to terrorism in this incident.
Stating firmly this wasn't an attack, begging questions amongst the United Nations about what really happened, and if the government is hiding something. This is fueled by recent affirmations by Joe Biden, blatantly lying about crossing the bridge on multiple occasions by train.
The Francis Scott Key Bridge, which I've been over many times commuting from the state of Delaware by train or by car.
Strictly colliding with the fact that there has never been train tracks on the bridge. Keep watching as we delve deeper into this very disturbing and suspicious incident. What happened?
The bridge that protects us from the water is in the water. A cargo vessel stuck, speared on the pylon it crashed into at 1:30 in the morning early Tuesday.
In the early hours of a fateful Tuesday morning, a colossal cargo vessel became a catastrophic agent of destruction on the Patapsco River near Baltimore. The drama unfolded just after 1:30 a.m. when the ship, almost 1,000 feet in length, collided with a pylon of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. The immediate aftermath was nothing short of devastation. A significant portion of the bridge collapsed and crumbled into the river below.
Yo! What the? What? What the? No shot! No shot!
Onlookers, some of whom were jerked from sleep by the colossal noise, compared the sound to an earthquake followed by what one described as rolling thunder, the eerie soundtrack of the bridge's collapse.
Jesus Campos, who has worked on the bridge and knows members of the crew who died, said that he was told they were on a break and some were sitting in their trucks parked on the bridge to warm up when it did collapse.
I need one of you guys on the south side, one of you guys on the north side, hold all traffic on the Key Bridge. There's a ship approaching that just lost their steering.
The sequence of suspicious events leading up to the crash reads like a thriller. Videos reveal that it first lost power, plunging the ship into darkness, only for the lights to flicker back on moments later. A brief reprieve before another blackout ensued. It was during these tense moments that plumes of black smoke billowed from the ship, signaling a desperate struggle to regain control. Yet, the lights went out again, and with them, any hope of averting disaster. The ship continued its inexorable path towards the bridge, colliding with a support column, creating massive destruction to the bridge, as well as the ship itself.
The Coast Guard's primary mission right now is search and rescue, looking for any survivors in the water.
Authorities scrambled, piecing together the puzzle of what went wrong. Initial investigations suggested a tragic accident, dismissing fears of a deliberate act, supporting the FBI statement. But soon, the people of the United States began asking questions. How could this happen with safeguards in place? Why did the lights cut out? Why didn't they use their massive anchor? The government response was silent.
New questions are unfolding for investigators now getting their first look inside the crippled MV Dolly cargo ship.
The cargo ship, flagged under Singapore and en route from Baltimore to Sri Lanka, was moving at a modest pace of 9 miles per hour. Yet, despite the slow speed, the impact was monumental. The ship's crew, miraculously, remained unharmed, a stark contrast to the fate of 6 construction workers who had been on the bridge.
A Baltimore City landmark, now a personal tragedy.
These were fathers, and these were sons, and these were husbands, and these were people who their families relied on.
These workers, now subjects of a somber recovery mission, were presumed dead, their hopes of survival dimmed by the cold embrace of the river below. Keep watching as we delve into the rescue mission in just a moment. The national shock was palpable. President Joe Biden pledged to mobilize federal resources, a testament to the bridge's importance not just to Baltimore, but to the nation. The investigation, led by the NTSB, focused on the ship's voyage data recorder and its maintenance history, hinting at potential past issues or maybe on the lookout for possible cyber interference. The rescue mission,
So far, 2 bodies have been recovered from the river where a bridge collapsed yesterday in Baltimore. As the search for the remaining unaccounted for continues, divers are navigating treacherous waters, hoping to recover what remains of those lost.
Following the catastrophic collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, an intense and immediate rescue mission was launched in the hopes of finding survivors among the wreckage. The effort focused on the fate of 6 construction workers who were on the bridge at the time of the accident. Authorities and rescue teams worked tirelessly, combing through the debris in the chilling waters of the Patapsco River, clinging to the possibility of rescuing the workers alive. Despite the exhaustive efforts and the use of advanced technology, including robotic cameras deployed by the FBI to navigate the treacherous underwater terrain, the mission yielded only heartache. 2 individuals were rescued from the water, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the tragedy. However, as hours turned into days, the harsh realities of the search conditions, coupled with the prolonged exposure to cold water, led authorities to a grim conclusion.
At this moment, officials are still searching for the remains of 6 people who were working on the Key Bridge in Baltimore when it collapsed.
The search and rescue operation was eventually suspended. This happened rather quickly, fueling discussions about what information the government is keeping in the dark. The decision was not made lightly. It came after an extensive search effort and was based on a multitude of factors, including the duration of the search, the extensive efforts that had gone into it, and the cold water temperatures. Officials reluctantly acknowledged that the chances of finding any of the missing workers alive were exceedingly slim. The mission had now transitioned from one of rescue to one of recovery, with the focus shifting towards bringing closure to the families of the presumed victims. The victims,
Miguel Luna, a father of 3, was originally from El Salvador. The 40-year-old left for work at 6:30 p.m. to fill potholes on the Key Bridge.
The victims of the tragic collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge were 6 construction workers, identified as migrant workers, who found themselves in the midst of a catastrophe far beyond anything they could have anticipated. Engaged in nighttime maintenance and construction work, these individuals were on the bridge to ensure its safety and functionality. From their perspective, the night would have begun like any other, focused on their tasks under the glow of artificial lights, with the sounds of the Patapsco River below and the occasional passing vehicle overhead. The work was routine, involving repairs and inspections that could only be conducted during the hours when traffic was minimal. The sudden and unexpected collision of the cargo ship with the bridge would have been a shocking and disorienting event. First, the power outage on the vessel, leading to a loss of navigational control, and then the catastrophic impact with the bridge pylon, a series of events that unfolded quickly, but would have felt agonizingly slow to those experiencing it firsthand. The structural failure of the bridge following the collision would have given the workers little time to react, plunging some into the dark, cold waters of the river below, while others may have found themselves stranded amidst the collapsing infrastructure.
Menor Yasir Suazo Sandoval would have celebrated his 35th birthday next month. He believed in giving back and donated to a children's soccer league in Honduras.
For the victims and their families, the transition from a search and rescue operation to a recovery mission marked a devastating turn. Hope for survivors diminished as the hours passed, with the realization setting in that the chances of finding anyone alive were slim due to the nature of the collapse and the conditions in the water. The announcement that the active search and rescue efforts were being suspended would have been a somber moment, shifting the focus to recovery and bringing closure to the families of the presumed dead. Government response.
The Biden administration has approved $60 million at this point in emergency money to deal with the aftermath, including, you guessed it, rebuilding the bridge.
The government's response to the catastrophic collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge has been multifaceted, with President Joe Biden at the forefront, pledging federal support to address the aftermath of the disaster. In his remarks, President Biden emphasized the federal government's commitment to move heaven and earth, to reopen the port and facilitate the bridge's reconstruction. He assured the public and local authorities of the provision of all the federal resources they need in response to this emergency, underlining a collective effort to rebuild the port together. However, the government's response and communications have not been without their controversies and critical scrutiny. A notable point of contention arose from a claim made by President Biden, suggesting he had personal familiarity with the bridge from having crossed it by train, a statement that raised eyebrows as trains have never run across this bridge. This inaccurately presented personal anecdote has fueled skepticism, about the reliability of information being shared by the government, leading to questions about whether the administration might be withholding information from the public or misrepresenting aspects of the situation and their own involvement or familiarity with the infrastructure in question. Moreover, the FBI's swift declaration that the incident was not a result of an attack has drawn critical eyes. While intended to quell any immediate concerns of terrorism, this rapid assessment has also prompted speculation about the depth and thoroughness of the investigation and whether there is a broader intent to keep the American public in the dark about potential vulnerabilities or other factors contributing to the disaster. Critics argue that these incidents, particularly the inaccuracies in public statements and the immediate dismissal of certain causes for the collapse, may suggest a pattern of minimizing public concern or managing the narrative around national tragedies. Such actions, whether intentional or not, contribute to an atmosphere of distrust, with some members of the public feeling that the government's response might not only be about addressing the physical aftermath, but also about controlling the political and social fallout of the disaster. Eyewitness.
I need one of you guys on the south side, one of you guys on the north side, hold all traffic on the Key Bridge. There's a ship approaching that just lost their steering.
The eyewitness account provided through a police call captures a tense and rapidly unfolding situation from the perspective of a first responder who was directly involved in the emergency efforts as the disaster with the cargo ship and the Francis Scott Key Bridge occurred. This individual played a crucial role in the immediate response, trying to mitigate further risk to human life as the situation deteriorated. From their vantage point, the urgency was palpable. The call indicates a clear understanding of the imminent danger, with the ship approaching the bridge after losing steering, a situation fraught with potential for disaster. The responders' immediate concern was to halt all traffic on the bridge, a decision that underscores a quick assessment of the risk and a swift move to prevent further casualties or injuries by keeping vehicles and pedestrians from the danger zone. The communication reveals a coordinated effort to manage the crisis, with mentions of needing personnel on both the south and north sides to effectively stop traffic. The realization that there was a crew working on the bridge heightened the stakes, prompting a push to ensure their safety by trying to get them off the bridge temporarily. This reflects an awareness of the varied risks present, not just the threat of a collision with the ship, but also the potential for individuals on the bridge to be caught in any resulting structural failure. The sudden collapse of the bridge, as relayed by the eyewitness, marked a harrowing moment of realization. The description of the bridge's fall conveys shock and the immediate aftermath of the collapse. The use of terms like "the whole bridge just fell down" and "the whole bridge just collapsed" communicates the scale of the disaster in real time, capturing the disbelief and urgency that would have permeated the scene. The ship. The ship involved in the catastrophic collision with the Francis Scott Key Bridge was a massive cargo vessel, nearly 1,000 feet in length. Such colossal dimensions underscore its capacity to carry a vast amount of cargo, making it a critical player in international shipping and trade routes. Given its size, the question arises, how could power simply cut out on such an essential piece of maritime machinery? The loss of power on a vessel of this magnitude is not just a technical failure, it's a critical safety issue. Ships are designed with redundant systems to ensure that power loss is a rare occurrence, especially for those navigating close to critical infrastructure, like bridges, sparking debates on whether or not the people of the U.S. are being kept in the dark. However, the incident with this cargo ship shows that even with advanced engineering, failures can occur. The initial blackout, followed by a brief restoration of power and then a subsequent loss of power, suggests a serious malfunction in the ship's electrical system or propulsion machinery. This isn't the first time a ship has experienced power loss, but the consequences in this instance were particularly severe due to the ship's proximity to the bridge. In past incidents, ships losing power have led to collisions, groundings, and other navigational hazards, though these are relatively rare given the global scale of maritime traffic. The industry has learned from each incident, continuously improving safety standards, training, and engineering to mitigate these risks. For a ship of this size, losing power implies a failure in either the primary propulsion system, the auxiliary power units, or possibly a catastrophic electrical failure that impacted all systems simultaneously. Ships are equipped with backup generators and emergency protocols to address such situations. However, the fact that power was not restored in time to prevent the collision suggests that the failure was either too sudden or too comprehensive for the crew to manage effectively. Investigations into the incident will likely focus on the ship's maintenance records, recent inspections, and any reports of issues with its propulsion or electrical systems. The ship's voyage data recorder, similar to an airplane's black box, will provide crucial details about the moments leading up to the power loss and collision. This data will help determine whether this was an isolated incident or if it points to broader issues within maritime safety protocols. The impact of such an event goes beyond the immediate damage to the bridge and the ship. It raises questions about the resilience of maritime infrastructure and the need for enhanced safety measures to prevent future occurrences. This incident will undoubtedly lead to a re-evaluation of how ships of this size and complexity are maintained and operated, especially when navigating in close proximity to critical infrastructure. The bridge collapse. The catastrophic collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore highlighted a critical vulnerability in the design and safety measures of certain types of bridges. Structural engineers and experts have since scrutinized the disaster to understand why the bridge failed so dramatically and how similar tragedies might be prevented in the future. One key point of focus has been the bridge's design as a continuous truss bridge. Typically, this design is praised for its strength and durability, as it allows for the distribution of loads across the entire structure. However, the failure of a single pier in this scenario led to a complete collapse of the span it supported, suggesting that while the design is robust under normal circumstances, it can be catastrophically vulnerable if a critical component fails. In the aftermath, comparisons were made with the Betsy Ross Bridge, a similar structure in terms of age and length which spans the Delaware River. The Betsy Ross Bridge has implemented a crucial safety feature absent from the Francis Scott Key Bridge: concrete dolphins. These structures are strategically placed in the water around the bridge's support piers to act as protective barriers against ship collisions. The absence of such protections around the Francis Scott Key Bridge's piers was immediately identified by experts as a significant oversight. Dr. Abhaya Giri, a structural engineering professor, pointed out that the lack of protection systems around the piers was a glaring vulnerability. His analysis suggested that a bridge designed as a continuous truss should have some redundancy or fail-safe mechanisms to prevent a total collapse if one part of the structure fails. The rapid and complete failure of the bridge, once a supporting pier was compromised, indicates a critical design limitation. The lesson from this tragedy is clear. Incorporating physical barriers like concrete dolphins can significantly enhance the resilience of bridges against ship collisions. Moreover, it calls for a broader re-evaluation of bridge safety measures, particularly for those spanning busy waterways where the risk of such collisions is higher. National impact. The collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge has ramifications that extend far beyond the immediate physical destruction and tragic loss of life, underscoring a national impact that touches on several critical aspects of American life and infrastructure. As a vital artery to the Port of Baltimore, the bridge's destruction halts a significant volume of trade and commerce. The interruption affects local and national businesses relying on the smooth transportation of goods through this route. The economic ripple effects are felt in delayed shipments, increased transportation costs due to rerouted traffic, and the potential for a spike in the prices of goods, affecting both the local economy and national markets. This disaster shines a spotlight on the aging infrastructure across the United States. It raises questions about the resilience and maintenance of critical bridges, roads, and other essential structures. The collapse prompts a national conversation about the need for significant investment in infrastructure upgrades and the implementation of advanced safety measures to prevent similar incidents. The bridge carried tens of thousands of commuters daily. Its collapse disrupts the lives of countless individuals, forcing them to seek alternative routes which can result in longer commutes, increased traffic congestion on secondary roads, and a higher demand for public transportation in the affected areas. This disruption highlights the dependency on key infrastructure and the domino effect its failure can have on daily routines and regional mobility. The incident acts as a case study for emergency preparedness and response, illustrating the challenges and necessities of swift action in the face of infrastructure failure. It underscores the importance of having robust disaster response plans in place, not only locally, but also at the national level, to ensure quick and efficient coordination among various agencies in times of crisis. The collapse and the federal government's pledge to move heaven and earth to address its aftermath push infrastructure safety and maintenance to the forefront of national policy discussions. It prompts lawmakers and public officials to reconsider priorities and potentially accelerate funding and resources dedicated to updating and securing the nation's infrastructure. On a broader scale, the bridge collapse impacts public trust in the safety of infrastructure. It brings to light the vulnerabilities in structures many take for granted, compelling a reassessment of safety standards and the implementation of more stringent inspection and maintenance protocols to regain public confidence. In summary, the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge serves as a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of infrastructure, economy, and public safety, highlighting the importance of proactive investment and maintenance to safeguard against future catastrophes. The incident not only affects the local community and state, but also prompts a nationwide reflection on the state of America's infrastructure and the steps needed to ensure its resilience and reliability.